Sun comes up, it's a new day dawning. It's time to sing our song again. For some reason, that's like, I want to say that's the quintessential morning song. How's everybody doing today? Um, yeah, good morning, everybody. It's a nice, cool morning. Hope you like my background here. I've been using this. Um, Trying to be conscious of my content creation by creating a space that has less distractions. I guess having the background, seeing everything behind me, because you see my backyard, you see your refrigerator, my son's desk. Actually, the space that I have here, my kids also sit with me over here on this side. This side, um, my son and I we play video games together, and my daughter has her own computer too. So I have a small house, so I just created a space to put all our computers, kind of like a pseudo work office area, because I do all my work right here. I spend a lot of time right here because this is where a lot of the action and work and planning and everything, content creation, whatever I'm doing, starts right here. So, hope you guys are having a good week, good day, good weekend. I don't know what day it is for you guys, but it is day 42, and we are getting into it. So, Proverbs is we're going through the Proverbs 10. We're going through these standalone verses where it's like one or two verses, mainly like two verses, and each of them have kind of like a little idea going on with them. And so let's go ahead and read this. Proverbs 10:18 through 19 in the ESV. The one who conceals hatred has lying lips, and whoever utters slander is a fool. When words are many, transgression is not lacking, but whoever strains his lips is prudent. Now let's go ahead and go with our baseline. I'll go ahead and always start with this, just to remind you of when you're reading Proverbs. Just remember the baselines of Proverbs, and it's the seven pillars of wisdom. The whole book of Proverbs is based around this idea that wisdom is very important. It's like stands next to God, and as you are living life, your life will go well with you, not necessarily materially, but spiritually, emotionally, and all that kind of stuff. Um, it will go well with you. You'll have a full life, and I don't think God actually promises you material wealth. I know the prosperity gospel teaches it, which I could go look up the verses for that. What the prosperity gospel, that when you follow God, you'll be rich or whatever. That's my general idea, that as you're following and giving your tithes and offerings to the Lord, you will be rewarded tenfold or whatever. And that I'm exaggerating. I'm not sure if that's what it says, but I don't believe in the prosperity gospel. And anecdotally, as I'm seeing amazing people follow Christ, doing amazing things in ministry, reaching out and sharing the gospel to others, they're not receiving material wealth and prosperity and making millions and stuff like that. So, and I don't think that's the purpose of why we're here on earth, is to make as much money as I can. I do believe that we should be making a living so that we could live in the society that we're in. But I don't believe that we should be getting more than what we deserve or what God has given. What God has given, we use that to the best of our abilities. If He decides to give us more, amazing. If He doesn't, amazing. If He takes away, that's His prerogative, right? And so just remember that this life is not our lives, it's His life, and we're following His commands and commissions and stuff like that. In general, if we go into the Gospels, it's love the Lord with all your heart and all your mind, and love others as yourself. The Great Commission is make disciples of all nations. So, under those ideas, that's how we're supposed to live. Now, when we think of how we are supposed to live, apart from just loving others, let's consider how that looks. And so we look at Proverbs as our baseline for righteous living. And it starts with wisdom, which is the baseline. When you're looking at the seven pillars of wisdom, it's purity, peacefulness, gentleness, reasonableness, full of mercy, good fruits. impartiality, and sincerity. Those are the pillars of wisdom, which a lot of it's found, well, all of it's found in the Bible. Um, Proverbs 1 talks about the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And as you're seeing, as you're reading, we already read through 10 chapters of Proverbs, and we have to be living righteously and in integrity. Okay. Those who follow wisdom have a sound mind. They take responsibility for their own actions. They're okay with saying sorry and accepting their mistakes, okay, and being responsible for their actions. Everything. You're that. You heed instructions. Mainly, you consider the words of others, close confidence, elders, and stuff like that, and not be proud about what you think or know about the world, because you don't have all the wisdom. God's the only one that has that, but God has bestowed on various different people's different parts of information, and I think that's a very strong tactic to get us to work together and to be in community, because part of being in this body of Christ is that we are a body. We're together and we do things together, and we also share wisdom, but we also impart exhortations and call people out and be together in that, walking in the weeds, walking in the sunshine, walking together, holding hands, pushing, pulling, whatever it is that we do together, right? And so this righteous living, or the life that is given to us while we are following Christ, following God, and seeking out wisdom and holding her hand and doing, is that we leads to spiritual well-being, God's favor, and eternal life. Their word, the words of the wise provide sustenance for themselves, their families, and others that you could bless. Okay. And I also reference Galatians 5:22-23. And actually, I'm going to reference another verse soon after we go over the verse. So that's baseline of the pillars. Baseline of Proverbs is this idea of righteous living and following wisdom. Okay. Like that little introduction. So here we go. This is a doozy. The one who conceals hatred has lying lips. So I'll just, one who conceals hatred. These are all in the orange. Remember, orange is the contrast to righteous living. So whoever utters slander, these are people. This is what they do. So I do the orange for what you do. That's in the negative. When words are many, all right, and then whoever restrains his lips. So this is yellow. Okay, so let's go to the first verse, verse 18. And this has to do with, actually, both of these are talking about this idea of lips. And I'll go ahead, and that's just a descriptor. I think I'll go for the underline here. So it's this idea of words. Every line here, the one who conceals it is a lying lips, utter slander, when words restrains his lips. Okay, so this idea of lips or your word as an important aspect of your life. If you haven't realized that, there you go. There's my wisdom to you. Watch your mouth. And it's true. It is very true. And they talk about this. Verse 18 talks about the concealing hatred. And this is the idea that you have anger or negative attitude towards someone, and you go ahead and through your actions, you feign friendship, feign kindness, feign camaraderie, I guess. So things that come out of your lips are things that are lies. You're trying to say everything's good, but you're concealing that slight. Now, I guess the extreme would be like you literally want to murder this person, and you want is it like the wicked person? You want the downfall of this person. You want to go ahead and destroy this guy's life, girl, whatever. And inside you're raging, and you maybe wrote little personal journals about this, and in your mind You've thought about many different ways in which to destroy this person. But when you're with that person, you are sweet, nice, kind, and a wonderful friend. That is what it's talking about, verse 18, the first part, is that you are a liar. You are not true. You are a hypocrite. And if that's you, check yourself, confront the person, confront yourself and why you feel these way, and then apologize if you think this is appropriate to that person, because what we are about here as believers in Christ is to restore relationships, to build up each other, to be a community together, to work together through our issues and problems and all that kind of stuff. And to lie to someone about your disagreement or lack of love towards another person by actually loving them and you don't like them at all, that's ridiculous. Don't do that. Why are you doing that? You are following the way of the wicked, and that leads to basically death. I guess in the extreme, but it's death in relationship, death, spiritual death, and all these kind of things. That's not what God wants to do. That's not loving your neighbor. Okay, and look at the baseline. Always look at the baseline. Now, part of the baseline is giving up your pride, giving up your arrogance and your stubbornness and stuff like that. And so that's hard. The hardening of your heart, kind of like what God did to Pharaoh in Egypt, where you know that you should follow what God has to say, and yet you still don't do it, even though people are dying around you because of that. That's ridiculous. So it is possible that God is hardening your heart and wants you to learn a lesson based on your life and the things you've been doing in the past. But that's not for me to know. That's all between you and God. But it says here, right in Proverbs, and Solomon saying it true, don't lie. If you have a problem, and what you would do with this situation is kind of search your heart and then go talk to this person and come to an agreement, and then restore relationships. That would be like best case scenario. Worst case scenario, that you just step away and kind of like be away for a little bit. Okay, that was it. All right. So 18 part B. This is another one. I don't know if this is the better version of someone who is a liar. So this is the person who openly kind of talks bad to you. So in the same situation is like total hatred, and openly wherever he goes talks bad about you. And that, I want to say it's better, because then now that the person who is the object of the slander knows that the person doesn't like him, and that's great and all, and it's not deceitful and or hypocritical and all that kind of stuff, but it's still not a good thing. That's not a good look. So if you are the B person, 18B person, where you just openly kind of disregard. Now, I have to call out my son. That is an issue. I think making negative comments to someone, and we call it in our house yuck or yum. And here's a hypothetical situation. So your child goes, I really like orange juice. And then someone goes, like one of your other kids go, orange juice is terrible for you. I don't know if you ever had a situation like that, where someone is trying to say a positive, something they like, and another person says, you're wrong. That's actually bad. That's kind of the intention. Yeah, person here says, I like something, and the person, there's a word for that. It's called, I can't think of the word. Here, I'm actually going to look at what, what do you call a person who negatively talks about something another person uh, something another person talks negatively about another person, something about about something another person has spoke about in the positive. That is, I think there's a word: naysayer, contrarian, Debbie Downer, pessimist, cynic, wet blanket, killjoy, party pooper. Okay, yes, yes. I think the big list is negativeness. It reports a negative side of everything and dampens it. Yeah, Debbie Downer, negative, grumpy Gus, wet blank makes it difficult for others to enjoy themselves by complaining or showing no enthusiasm. Party pooper, killjoy. Yeah, those are all lit. um, Killjoy is the word I would like to say, or Debbie Downer is another one. I didn't know Grumpy Gus was one too, but that's kind of a slander. Why would you? And we say yuck your yum, other person's yum. Why would you say negatively about someone else's positive experience? Oh, here's the other one. What do you call? Wait. I'll go to Google again. Google. What do you call a person who tries to make it seem like what you say is good is in fact bad? Debunker, critic, that's not meant. Straw man, a logical fallacy where someone misrepresents their opponent's argument to make it. No. Fraud, hypocrite, gaslighter, a person who manipulates into questioning their own sanity or memory. Okay, gaslighter. That's the word I was looking for. You're gaslighting me, thinking that making my reality, that my reality is not real. That I think something is good and you're trying to make it look bad. You are a gaslight. I I'm gonna I need to discuss this a little bit more. Person who tries to make you doubt yourself or feel like what you say is wrong is called a gaslighter. Behavior is a form of psychological manipulation where the person uses tactics like lying, twisting your words, or belittling your feelings to make you question your own person. The goal is to make you dependent on their version of events and break down your self. Don't be a gaslighter. Don't manipulate it. Okay, anyways. Seriously, fools. You fool. Don't do it. That is not loving. I'm going to research more about gaslighting because I hear that a lot. I hear that a lot. Let's go to verse 19. Or verse 19. When words are many, transgression is not lacking. If you talk too much, a lot of it, I also hear a lot of words when someone makes a mistake and they try to explain away and say a lot of things. Be careful of that. And actually, let me go with the actual highlights the high probability of sinning with an unrestrained. There's a probability of like exaggeration, careless remarks, sharing of confidence. So when you're speaking a lot of things could come out, and the intention is to not do that. Don't stop speaking. Listen, be quiet, watch out, watch what you're saying, and all that kind of stuff, in many words. And so, definitely a thing you have to be careful of. I'm getting kind of long here. I'm going to go ahead and finish this up really quick. But whoever restrains his lips is prudent. And there's a couple of verses I wanted to share for this, and not this one. It's Luke 6:45, the good person out of his good treasures bring forth good, and the evil person out of his evil treasures brings forth evil. For out of the abundance of his heart, his mouth speaks. Okay, Luke 6:45. And what they're saying here is that I didn't read this. This idea of your heart and what comes out of your heart, you say it. It will come out. It will come out. So for those gaslighters who try to manipulate conversations to make someone yucking someone else's young or being a Debbie Downer or whatever it is, um, in your heart somewhere is this negativity that towards other people. And there's a reason that that happens, and you need to deal with that. And so if all that comes out of you is that kind of things, then your heart is kind of like that. The contrast is too, if you're saying good things, being encouraging and stuff like that, that means your heart is kind of good, which is interesting because for verse here, when you're looking at verse 18, that's an interesting concept, is that you could also be hypocritical about your restrained lips, but it still doesn't change your heart. So be careful of that. Um, your heart, whatever's in your heart is a big deal. And so they also talk about guarding your heart, and that's really important too. I guess the things that you ingest is kind of an idea that happens, that is spoken in the Bible also. Whatever comes through your mouth is who you are, or your senses, or anything like that. And so situations of like lust and materialism, and the other one is I guess looking at other things, and there's a word for it, where you look at something and you wish you had. Coveting is the word. Those are things that if you are constantly doing lusting, coveting, those kind of things, it actually affects your heart. And I know, and for whatever your personal sin is, those are the things. If you keep on feeding that sin, it will affect your heart. So I didn't know I was going to get into the heart conversation, so I'll just end it right there. Watch your heart, and because from your heart, your actions and your lips and your things you say and stuff like that. So this verse is mainly talking about watching what you say. So I'm gonna add a new baseline here. Go ahead and add a new baseline. Um, for wisdom, watch what you say, because it reveals your heart. I don't know if I can say because it reveals your heart. Watch what you say. Watch what you say. I'm going to say it does reveal your heart, but it also leaves it open for being hypocritical. And I don't know. This is a big one. This was a pretty big one today. Because I personally had that issue in the past of not watching what I say, but I went to the other extreme of not saying anything. So it kind of affected my relationship with my wife because I wouldn't say what's on my mind. So even so, that idea of concealing hatred, or wait, was it concealing hatred? Is when I had a problem, I would not say it, and I would say everything is okay, and that is not right. You have to confront, you have to discuss, you have to argue, you have to come to agreement, you have to collaborate, and all that kind of stuff. And so, unless you say it, no one will ever know. So, don't go to the other extreme and not saying that there's issues in your heart towards another person. You need to talk about it so that you guys can repair the heart and repair the relationship, because your relationship will never be perfect, but you get to the point where it's optimal, where you discuss your issues, because you're not the same person. I mean, I'm talking about it could be any relationship, but when you're in a marriage relationship, it just heightens the issue because you're living with the person, especially if you have kids, and that kind of further stresses things out. And so, unless you could come to um, a place, a safe spot for you to talk about things, concealing it is the worst thing you can do. I'm not saying you're uttering slander. You have to I guess, utter the slander, but recognize that's in your heart and you want to change it. So whatever it is, and it could be a stupid thing like my wife never changes the toilet paper. I always have to do it. Why is she leaving a mess all over the place? So those little disagreements, and you don't say it, and you don't say it, and then be able to check yourself, like, why are you feeling this way? Why is this a big deal? That's an issue. You need to kind of come together and kind of do it. And so it's all about this idea of community, this idea of togetherness, this idea of working together. Because we want to have the fruits of the spirit here. We want to have love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness. And that also means going through the hard stuff in gentleness and self-control. That's a big one. So, anyways, I hope you learned something today. Thank you for joining me on the journey that we're going through in Proverbs, and I hope to see you next time. Have a good day, and I'll see you later. Peace. Yeah, I've had a lot of those situations with my. Anyway, I could continue talking about this, but take care. I'll see you guys a second time. Later.